I issued an order that goes into effect today that deals with attendance and operations of bars and restaurants. And I'm sure that you've seen similar actions around the country. It was a difficult decision. I consulted with members of the emergency policy group that are with me to get a sense of, what their advice might be of concerns. Clearly looked at the literature, looked at what the CDC and others were saying. And when you look around the country, it's been kind of an extreme. Some places completely closing restaurants and bars, others taking a more moderate approach. So the decision I made was really based on the latest advice from the CDC. And so the order requires restaurants and bars to limit their occupancy to 50% and to close at 10 p.m. So that's the place we're starting. That gives an opportunity for those establishments to adjust their business, and hopefully we won't see many closures. However, the order also indicates that this may change. And so, as you know, things are changing rapidly. It may be necessary at some point for us to actually, for me to issue an order to close restaurants and bars. We stand ready at the county as a social service agency under Florida statute to help people get through this challenge. What I'm hoping is that Congress will act quickly and provide funding to us directly. What we don't need is a federal program that's based on reimbursements like FEMA. We need money to go directly to people, and I've sent the message to my lobbying folks to get that bill drafted in a way that does that. Because people have to pay rent, they have to pay all their expenses, and that's really where we need that direct influx of cash from the federal government. So fortunately, the county is in good financial shape. We have strong reserves that we can draw on. However, we have to be aware that we are soon approaching hurricane season. So we have to balance the amount of reserves that we currently use to get through this crisis with what we may need to deal with storms. In addition to the order that I just described that I issued last night, I'm also going to be issuing an order today that limits the size of gatherings, both public and private, across the entire county. We do have to be aware of the necessity of social distancing. Sometimes that's working well based on people's personal responsibility, sometimes it doesn't. And so to be absolutely sure, the order that I'll be issuing today will provide that both public and private events and gatherings throughout the county will be limited to no more than 50 people. This particular challenge, this particular disaster really does require more personal responsibility. And that especially goes to businesses to be sure that they can provide, whenever possible, the opportunity for workers to work from home. And then, of course, all the things that you've heard over and over again, wash your hands, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have to repeat that, but all of those things are something that we all have to do on our own. We have to remind each other to do that. The only way that we get through this is by taking that responsibility, by encouraging others to do so, and that will make a big difference. So the other thing that's really important, in addition to the things I just described, is to find out who is a carrier of the disease, who's ill, and the only way to do that is through testing. It's very helpful that the federal government has taken action to speed up the production of testing kits and take all the other steps that are needed. However, on a local level, the challenge is how to safely gather those samples in an efficient way, but without putting healthcare workers at risk. And so the city of Tampa and the county have been identifying sites that we are standing up now, and they're Many of them are already prepared to provide these drive-through services. This is coming together. It's going to be in place very quickly. But I want to be sure that, before we make any major announcements, that our medical community is absolutely prepared and ready to undertake this. This is changing rapidly. We're adapting rapidly. We're learning a lot every day. And so we will be at this for a while, but I can tell you our commitment is to keep our community safe and do our very best to work with our medical community to do that.
And the majority of the locations have been very, very cooperative. A couple of the bars in Ybor City have already texted me and let me know that they're just shutting down as opposed to limiting the number of individuals in there. So we're not going to go in, with a police state and start arresting individuals, but we'll get their cooperation.
This is a disaster on the level of a hurricane. But with a hurricane, you can see the pictures, you can see the hurricane coming, everyone's familiar with it, and there's a different sense of urgency. Here, it's the opposite. It's a tiny little bug that no one can see, and all you see are people getting sick. But we don't see many people getting sick in our community like in other communities. And so there isn't, I don't believe, the same sense of urgency. But if people think about it this way, that in the context of what we're familiar with, a hurricane, if we had the opportunity together as a community to take steps to actually take a Cat 5 hurricane that's heading for us and reduce it to a Cat 1, you can bet that everyone would be doing everything they could. That's what we're doing here. We're doing all this, we're taking a Cat 5 disease and we're taking all of the opportunities we can to effectively dilute it. And I think that's the way people need to think about this. And that really, I think, then helps people understand personal responsibility. The other thing I want to mention in terms of people who need help, I talked about social services. Those who need assistance, go to the county website, hcfl.gov, and go to the social service link. We can, there you will find all of the typical social services that we provide, whether it's help with rent, help with utility bills, and so forth. Our economic development people, as I know, the City of Tampa folks are working very closely with small businesses and with others to provide loans. There is a loan program that was released by the governor yesterday. And so again, go to our website and connect up with our economic development people. We are reaching out to businesses. We're not waiting for people to come to us. But for those who need immediate assistance, that's the best portal, that's the best way to get to us. We are pushing as hard as we can to procure both testing equipment and protective equipment. That goes through the state emergency management. They then are working with the feds, with the major corporations that are actually producing the kits and the equipment. So it's kind of a chain of supply.